On this episode of K-Pod...
Is Korea safe for you? Do you have any concerns about your safety living in Korea? What are some precautions you take when living here? Do you feel safe when you're walking the streets in Korea? Would you consider Korea to be a safe place compared to your country? All of this and more in this episode of K-Pod. We record our podcast in downtown Changwon City, South Korea at the only Irish bar in town, O'Brien's Irish Bar and Restaurant. They are located in Juangdong, right across from the International Hotel on the 3rd floor. If you're in the area, be sure to stop by and check them out for some great food, drinks, and one of the best atmospheres in the area. O'Brien's Irish Bar and Restaurant, Changwon City.
It's K-Pod, Life in Korea, with your hosts, Scott, Marco, and Adam.
Welcome to K-Pod, Life in Korea, the podcast that brings you some of the lives and people working and living right here in South Korea, and in Changwon City in particular. I'm one of the hosts, Adam. To my right is Scott. Scott, how are you?
Not too bad.
Across from me is Marco. Marco, how are you doing?
Doing great.
And we have our guest, Saber. Saber, how are you this evening?
I'm good, thanks.
On this episode, we will be talking about safety. Is Korea safe for you? Do you feel safe living in this country? And what are some precautions that you take when you're living here?
So there always seems to be a concern with people that are thinking about coming to Korea, whether it's a safe country or whatever. All of us have been here for various time frames. Marco's been here 3 years. You've been here, 8?
On and off about 8
On
years.
and off. Saber, you're in your second year?
Fourth year.
Fourth year. Longer than Marco.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all kinds of, people ask. I get questions all the time online, whether this is safe, that is safe, what they should be worried about. So let's start off with, before you came to Korea, did you have any concerns with regards to anything in terms of safety? I mean, I heard a lot of stories before I came here, but it was a different time back then. Adam, did you have any concerns before you came here?
Well, I had a brother who had lived here before I came, and he told me to get vaccinated, go to a travel doctor. So I did that, and I think it was about $80 to get some shots, which in retrospect I think was kind of unnecessary.
So you got some type of travel shots that
right.
People get before they go somewhere.
Yeah, and I remember the doctor at the clinic said he had a package that he could give me for about $50, and he said it would be extra to get vaccinated against Japanese encephalitis. And I said, what are my chances of getting that? And he said, well, they're pretty slim. You probably won't get that unless you're drinking water in like rural areas where it's not treated. So I didn't opt for that, but I did get the other shots.
All right, and Marco, do you have any concerns before you came here?
Not one.
No? Other than maybe just the fear of traveling?
Not one. I had traveled before in places that were
not even like
more dangerous than
not
Korea.
Even like stopovers and missing your flight.
No.
I always worry about that stuff.
I would have, but I was meeting somebody at the airport, so like in Dallas, and I wasn't flying by myself. My only flight by myself was from Columbus to Dallas. But then my flight to Korea, I had someone, so.
I always have that fear. Like if I'm flying home and I stop in, Tokyo or somewhere, if I don't have a certain amount of time frame, I'm always concerned about, I hate having to rush.
I'm the same.
But at the same time, I don't like having 13 hours to kill in an airport.
Leave the airport.
There's nothing around the airport there.
Oh, what airport is it?
Narita. Yeah,
Oh,
there's
that's true.
nothing.
There is nothing around Narita. Okay.
But they do have those, hotel things, you can rent a room. It's like $10 an hour. I usually just get that and go to sleep. And they wake you up when it's time to board. Anyway, that's a little off topic. Saber, did you have any concerns before you came here? Is this like your first outside of Texas type?
No, I did an internship in London before, while I was in college. It was my first time like moving officially to somewhere for a long amount of time. I think that most of my concerns were just general, like, I'm moving sort of concerns to a new place. I think my family and people I knew had more concerns about me going than I had for myself. Like they were very like, oh, North Korea's right there. Are you sure you're going to be okay? And I'm like, I'm in Changwon. I know you don't know where that is, but that's at the bottom of South Korea.
Right.
So like, I think a lot of people were putting pressure on me to be worried, but I was not concerned.
There's a lot of concerns people have regarding North Korea, especially family members, like you said. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So did you hear any stories? Anybody hear any stories regarding living in Korea? Like you had your brother.
Yeah, my brother basically told me that it's a relatively safe place. He said it's, walking the streets at night, it's not too bad, like you'll run into a few drunkards once in a while, but usually they're not very belligerent. They're just kind of like, oh, hey, where are you from? And you just kind of like, oh, yeah, as long as you're, nice to them. And
you're just talking about yourself now, though, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just talking about myself, yeah.
I would say Koreans had a lot more worries when you moved here than you.
Yeah, the monster had arrived, yeah.
I mean, before I came here, I think it was a year or two before I moved here, there was a story about a teacher that was murdered here.
In this city?
No. Just
Okay.
in South Korea in general.
Like
originally, yeah.
Really?
A female teacher was pushed off a balcony or something.
Okay.
And, nothing ever came of it. I don't even know if it was true. I was told this story before I came here by a friend. I mean, there has been, obviously there's been foreigners that have been killed here. I'm not talking about, obviously, not the war or anything like that. I mean, in the last 20 years, I think in 1985, there was a pretty famous case of a English teacher that was murdered.
Yeah, in Seoul. I read about that recently.
And there was a documentary, I think, about it.
Right. But they think that it wasn't a Korean who did it. They think it was like somebody who worked at her school, another foreigner.
That was a Korean, though.
Oh, was it? Okay.
It was a co-worker that they think that did it, but nobody was ever arrested or anything regarding it.
Okay.
Anyway, so obviously, murder was none of our concerns.
Now it is. Don't look at me like that.
All right, so let's talk about the North Korea issue. Did anybody have any concerns with that before coming here?
Not before, but I think a couple years into my coming back to Korea, I started a public school, and a couple years in, there was some pretty strong vitriol between the North and the South. And I remember my parents calling me and saying like, hey, do you think maybe you should come home? And I just said, no, I think I'm pretty safe down here in the South. As Saber said, we're pretty far south. I don't think.
Yeah, it's definitely more in the Western media than it is here.
Right.
So, parents or somebody might see stuff a lot more than we do, actually.
Yeah, I get updated from my parents. They're always telling me about what's happening. I'm like, oh, really? That's a thing that's happening right now? That's cool. I only get concerned if Koreans are concerned about that.
Yeah,
and usually they aren't, so I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, they've been dealing with this threat for, 60 years? 60 some odd years? Almost 70 years now?
You asking me? I haven't been there.
No, I'm just
been here that long. Sure. But, yeah, probably. Anyway, since the Korean War, and obviously before it, but
even when I went to the DMZ and I didn't even feel unsafe there. When I technically was in North Korea, I'm like, I don't know, it just isn't. I'm with you. If the Koreans aren't worried, why should I be?
But there have been times where Koreans are worried. How do you know? How often are you talking with Koreans and stuff?
And Koreans are pretty chatty people.
In general, they usually don't talk about that stuff. Even if something is going on, they're not going to necessarily go up to a foreigner, whether you know them or not, and bring that topic up.
I don't know. My Korean friends will talk about it openly. I have one class who always asks me about North Korea. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I can tell you what the news says, but I guess the younger generation is probably less averse to talking about it because they're more detached than the older generations are because, they were born into Korea as it is now, well connected, strong economy. They haven't been they weren't alive. They didn't really see the war or the destruction, and they haven't been alive for most of the cleanup and stuff.
I've been here long enough. I've seen a lot of things regarding North Korea, from testing nukes to missile tests to when they shot up that island.
Yeah.
That's probably what you were referring to.
I remember that one, yeah.
Oh.
That was when I was gone, actually. That happened. That happened after I left for a couple of years. But
and then with Kim Jong-il, when he passed away, what was going to happen, and then Kim Jong-un, now in power, and then obviously Trump becoming president, what effect that would have.
And I think also when you look back at, most recently, Kim Jong-un having the audacity to send out people to murder his brother in an international airport with like a weapon of mass destruction. I mean, that's pretty scary stuff.
That's speculation, isn't
it? I think most people think.
I've heard whether it's true or not, but Kim Jong-un is not the person to be worried about. It's actually the sister that runs everything, and she's the cold-hearted, has things done to people type thing.
Okay, I could see that.
She's
maybe
the one who's actually in charge of everything.
Really?
I don't know that. I haven't talked to him in a while.
Just things you read, yeah.
But they can't have a female face.
Yeah.
Which is part of the thing, But anyway, I heard she calls the shots.
Okay.
She's the one that punishes people by
So what do they do if Kim Jong-un pisses her off?
Taking them out with anti-aircraft guns, feeding them to the dogs.
So would you say North Korea is maybe the biggest concern that people might have?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to talk about like street level crime, I'd be more afraid of North Korea than anything here. I mean, there's not much to be afraid of here. It's
like they say, Koreans are more afraid of Trump than they are of Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
That's true.
If things escalate or something happens, it could be.
Mm-hmm. But in terms of like street level crime, like walking the streets of Korea, I feel pretty safe. I don't feel like I'm going to get robbed or mugged or assaulted. That's just me. I just haven't had that happen to me.
Yeah, it'll be a tough transition going back though, because like if I'm like at a park or something, I'll just leave my stuff on a bench, my phone, and I'll be like, oh, let me go look at this thing over here. And I know like when I go back, my stuff's still there on the bench.
Yeah,
like,
you don't get a lot of thieves here,
Okay, so let's get into that. So as far as personal belongings and stuff, you feel pretty much. I mean, a big thing for me to get adjusted to when I came here was like just going out to, say, a bar. And, back in that time, they didn't pay up front. And almost every establishment, let's say the bathrooms outside of wherever you are, not outside like outside, but, in a different part of the building. And you would just go to the bathroom. I mean, you could just leave, go home. But Korea, it's just, there's an honor system here in some way, you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Are you talking about payment? Like leaving a tab?
Like you could go into almost any Korean restaurant even, or bar, and, you can have some drinks, and if you just get up and go to the bathroom, which is usually not within the same room type thing. Mm-hmm. There's just a trust that doesn't exist in Canada or...
I think so. I think so. And I think also like if you leave your wallet in a taxi or a bus, there's a good chance that if you try to find it, if you make the right phone calls, it will be returned with you with the cash inside. Whereas back in Canada or maybe the States as well, there's a slim chance that you're ever going to see that wallet again.
Yeah. I had a friend and she would like consistently lose her wallet or her phone, and she always got it back.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of things happen to me over my time here, obviously, with all the time. I mean, I've had Koreans attack me. And again, it's nothing. It was obviously a drunk person. But my first year here, there was a Korean, I had a Korean friend that I would go visit, and they had a chicken restaurant. Mm-hmm. And his mother, was the cook in the restaurant. Anyway, there's a Korean guy on this road just going nuts, punching all kinds of people. Mm. Like he punched my friend's mother in the face, and he was hitting, coffee girls and whoever came by. And I just arrived, and I was like, well, hey, this got to stop. So I just went up to the guy, and he turned around and punched me in the face. And I just grabbed him and threw him down, and put my knee on his chest and held him there until the police came.
Yeah.
And there used to be a thing here that they call blood money type thing. Like, you should never get involved with Koreans in any type of altercation, because as a foreigner, you're going to end up paying something,
Yeah.
regardless of who's right or who's wrong.
Yeah, I've heard of this.
But that all worked out, and it came, I had to go down to the police station. There was absolutely no English back in those days. Like, we're talking 17 years ago or something. And writing down this whole page of a statement in English meant nothing because nobody could translate it.
Mm-hmm.
But the police were really nice, and they were like, "Oh, we're sorry this happened to you." It was also a time where it's like, there was really no foreigners around this area.
Yeah.
And they were kind of embarrassed that the whole thing happened. And they were apologizing. Anyways, what ended up happening, it was up to me what happened to this guy. I could have, helped in saying, go to prison.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, he's just drunk. I mean, it's wrong. I'm not saying it's an excuse. And I met the guy with my coworker because she had to translate, and it was embarrassing, a week or two later.
Yeah.
And he just brought orange juice and fruit to my school. And
okay. Kind of like no hard feelings kind of thing.
right.
Yeah.
And I also had my house broken into. So this was, a different time period. I was living somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And I came home one day, and I just put my key in the lock and turned. It was like, that's weird. It was like, felt like it was unlocked. And I just went in and, just normal, sat down, started watching TV. And I think it was the next day or 2 days later, I looked over and it was like, hey, my computer monitor is gone.
Oh, no. How about that?
And then I looked over and I was like, hey, one of my cameras is missing. And then
how'd they get in?
My back balcony, where they put the air conditioner in.
Yeah.
They had it so you couldn't really close the window. And it didn't have the bars on the window.
Yeah.
So they must have hopped over from the house behind. Anyway, and I was like, I started looking around. I was like, oh, I'm missing money. Oh, some of my jewelry's gone. I was like, something must have happened here. And maybe my door was unlocked, like they left through the main door.
And these are probably the days before CCTV is everywhere, right?
Yeah. It was probably...
Because CCTV is here everywhere now.
It was over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
12 years ago, maybe. And so I had my school call the police, and they brought in, it was just like, what are those TV shows, like CSI?
Yeah.
These guys came in with these, ultraviolet lights and put it on my floor.
Whoa.
And there was literally footprints everywhere. I was so embarrassed. You could see footprints all over the friggin' place.
You can find the semen trails everywhere, too.
Yeah.
Those are mine.
But anyway, maybe, I don't know. No, you don't need lights to see that. I just leave that. So they put it near the back window, and you could see the footprints where they came in through the back window. And long story short, they ended up finding the guy who did it.
Really?
And he was a younger guy who, finished school and had problems, getting work and that. And you have to remember, for 8 years, I was on the same routine when I left the house. I was always carrying video equipment and stuff, kind of expensive equipment. So it would be easy to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Did he live close to you?
I think his family lived in the area, yeah.
You think he'd been, scoping you out?
You must, because you wouldn't want to hop over onto a balcony not knowing that the person's not in the house. Not necessarily, but anyway, he got caught, and they caught him because my video camera they found at a pawn shop.
Oh, okay.
And this video camera was only sold in Canada, like the serial number and stuff. So, and then they got the guy that way. And I ended up getting almost everything back, including the jewelry, like some rings and all kinds of stuff, except for the computer monitor. The guy sold it or something. They couldn't return it. But his family bought me the same monitor.
Oh, that's nice.
But
did you have the option to charge him?
Yeah,
or?
I was just going to get into that. So the bad part about it, I had to go down to the police station one day, and this entire family was there.
Yeah.
And they were all crying and bowing. It was all like a funeral almost.
Okay.
And it was just uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable. The mother was constantly crying and
they were probably just totally ashamed, right?
And it was up to me whether he went to prison.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, I was just like, I got everything back. I didn't even notice for 2 days, you know what I mean? But I got everything back, and the last thing I want is put some guy in jail for life and having a family angry at me in a different country. To me, it's just let it go.
That's a very strong deal of empathy you have there, because I would have been pissed. I don't think I would have gone that route. I think
I
would
don't
have
care that much about material things. I mean, the long run, it could be worse. Do you know what I mean? If I find with any kind of altercation or anything, the more you kick up a fuss, the worse things are going to be. Whether it's in a bar, whether it's... I just avoid it all.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put a guy in prison for life. And like I said, the family
will
not look at you.
Well, not life, but he would have had a few years probably.
I was like, is that the sentence?
Well, when you think about it, like he would have been thrown, he would have had a record, which basically would have screwed him in the long run.
Yeah.
It's just not worth... I'm not saying it would be, but it's not worth having a family angry at you. Or
I don't know. Like you're telling the story, and I was thinking, oh, this poor guy couldn't get work. He's just trying to get by. But at the same time, it's like
that's what I was told. Doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah, that's fair.
Saber, do you have any concerns when you walk home at night or anything? I know you're not like a big party girl or anything, but like...
I don't... I feel safer here. I still think I take the same precautions that I would if I was back home in the States. But I mean, I feel like the guys do get a little bit more aggressive at night, and so I am always on my guard.
Okay.
Even in the morning, I was walking to work one time, and
Korean guys or just
Korean guys,
in general?
drunk Korean guys.
It wasn't him.
It wasn't him.
Me. No, I don't live in this part of the city.
It's usually drunk Korean guys, or if I'm in Seoul, then sometimes foreigners can get a little bit rowdy. But, you know, like in the morning one time, I was just walking to work and a guy stopped me and, you know, decided to chat me up and then try to touch me. And I'm like, I'm on my way to work. I'm running away from you.
Well, I noticed because you have blonde hair. Mm-hmm. And I remember back in the day, I don't know if it's an issue nowadays, but back in the day when a Korean man would see a foreign woman with blonde hair, they would think that they were a Russian lady of the night, as it were.
It still happens.
Yeah,
I get asked that all the time. I'm in the elevator. Hey, are you free? What do you mean? Are you free?
Yeah, are you Russian? Are you Russian? You know, and
free like time-wise or
free like
service?
Yeah. Are you free? Is your time free for service? Is what? Yeah. So it's.
I had a Russian girlfriend years ago who came to Changwon to visit me, and she had Korean guys go up to her and be like, "Are you Russian? Are you Russian?" And she was like, "Well, yes, but I'm not. I'm not here, and for that kind of thing. I'm here visiting my boyfriend. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a thing still.
How about taxis? If you have to take a taxi late at night.
I don't usually feel uncomfortable with the taxi ajashis. Usually they'll ask like, oh, where are you from? Are you Russian? And I'm like, no. But I'm not too afraid of them because that's sort of their livelihood. So they can't. Like, I don't think they're going to do anything.
There are scary stories.
Yeah, I know. But luckily I've never been. In general with taxis, I know. But
these days in Korea, like, it's so easy to track down a taxi driver.
So, like, taxis aren't my biggest concern. Like, when I do go party, when I go to a club, I'm always on guard, too, because I've been, like, dragged into, like, rooms with Korean guys against my will and had to, like, sit down and be like,
that's
okay,
booking.
This is creepy.
That's,
booking. Oh, my God.
That's normal.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's super normal. And I had heard about it before it happened. I just...
really uncomfortable to watch. And I just have to keep telling myself the girls know what they're doing when they come here. But when you see it, I'm
not necessarily Saber.
Well, no.
Yeah, like I've never heard of a foreigner.
Yeah, it's like
that happening too. So it was very shocking that it had even happened at all.
But back to, as we were saying, like when you got broken into and like the days before CCTV, did you know that like CCTV is literally everywhere here now? Like it's in most bars have them, like just as like a insurance kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Because if a fight breaks out or if something gets stolen, they can actually look back at the tapes and...
But that's probably true in a lot of countries.
I think more so here, though. I think CCTV is everywhere in this country.
Like I think London is pretty big on the CCTV cameras.
China has a lot of CCTVs like everywhere.
And like Korea as well. Like Korea is so well wired, like the fastest internet in the world, and everything's just like, so well like designed in terms of like networking and stuff.
So a couple of things people probably should know. I mean, obviously, guns are not allowed in the country. So it's very unlikely. I mean, they are, but...
Unless you're a police officer or a soldier.
Or you can use them at a gun range.
Shooting ranges.
But it's really unlikely that somebody's going to be carrying around a gun
Right. Cool. Marco, would you consider Korea to be a safe place compared to your country, or in particular, the place where you came from?
Yes, I absolutely would. So I grew up in West Virginia, and then I lived in Ohio. So I lived in Ohio. I lived like close to downtown. Like I could walk like 2 minutes and I'm downtown. It was also like next to OSU campus. So there were a lot of break-ins. I mean, I've been on streets. I worked at a nonprofit for a while. Some streets I was working on, like, oh yeah, this person got shot in that house the other day, that sort of thing. And people always trying to scam you, like, oh, can I borrow your phone? Then they'll take it and run. Like, people are always trying to do stuff like that. And then in West Virginia, drugs are a huge problem. So yeah, just like in West Virginia, I was mostly worried about running where I'm from in West Virginia. I don't want to say all of West Virginia. Where I'm from in West Virginia, I was mostly worried about people like running into someone who's just like cracked out of their mind, and I don't know what they could do just because they aren't coherent or they don't know what's going on.
Saber, do you think that Korea is safer than Texas? I don't know where you're from in Texas.
I'm from Austin, so a bigger city. I think that I do feel safer here in Korea. I feel like I can walk around by myself at night here, whereas in the States I would never, ever do that. Or if I did, I would have like my phone in my hand ready to dial 911 if anything happens. Here, if I'm walking from, being out with my friends back to my house, I feel like I can do that safely.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's much safer. I feel safer here.
Yeah, I feel safer. I'm from a small town in Ontario, but I lived in Toronto for a few years, and Toronto has its crime, but it's always in like little pockets. And I never really faced any big scary times in Toronto as a student. And when I moved here, I could walk home. I mean, yeah, you encounter some drunk people, whether they be foreigners or Korean people, but nobody really starts any stuff if you're just like, okay, have fun, guys, and just walk away from them. I've never really encountered anyone who's just looking for a fight kind of thing, so.
Yeah, I find it very safe too. I mean, there's never been a time, regardless of where I am, or if I'm out late, I'm not afraid to walk down any street at night. Yeah. Even like the creepy little walkway things, in some of the older places, like where I live. It's like a little walkway, not for cars type thing that you gotta walk down to get to your house. It would be really good for a horror movie, but
we should film that.
Not afraid. If I turn on a street and I can see like a silhouette of somebody down the road, whether they're drunk or not, I'm not worried about pretty much anything. And I really do like the more of the honor system here. You
you can see follow it.
Yeah, like you see shops like tire stores. They've got tires out in front of their shop all the time.
Shops, clothing stores do that as well.
If you did that back home, and the next day those tires aren't going to be there.
They're going to be gone
the next day.
Do you think that lends itself to like how a lot of these Korean men have to go through the military, so that they're kind of like instilled with this discipline?
Could be. I don't know what the laws are. I don't know what the punishment is.
Is that suggesting that women can't shoplift?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to suggest that, but usually it's men who are stealing shit, right? Like
maybe
stealing tires anyway.
Winona Ryder did it. Is that how it was?
Yeah.
Is it Winona or Winona?
Whatever her name is. But anyway, just stuff in general. Even though I got robbed myself, I still feel
safe.
Pretty safe. I mean, it's weird seeing that I had my house broken into.
I have bars on my window, but I think even if they were not there, I'd still feel pretty safe.
Yeah, usually foreigners don't like that. Yeah. I've known people who had them taken off because they feel trapped and like to have the window open.
So that's been this week's episode of K-Pod, Life in Korea. I'd like to thank our guest, Saber. Saber, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Where can we find you?
Kpop.global.
And as always, Marco, where can people find you?
I am also at kpop.global.
Scott?
You can find me anywhere in the Changwoner area, or Masan, or at Changwoner or changwoner.com, or this podcast.
And I'm Adam, and I'll be breaking into Scott's apartment soon. That's where you can find me. Thanks, everyone.
We record our podcast in downtown Changwon City, South Korea at the only Irish bar in town, O'Brien's Irish Bar and Restaurant. They are located in Jungang-dong, right across from the International Hotel on the 3rd floor. If you are in the area, be sure to stop by and check them out for some good food, drinks, and one of the best atmospheres in the area. O'Brien's Irish Bar and Restaurant, Changwon City.